You're listening to Phenomenology Club Radio.
What the fuck? Something happened. Hold on, can you hear me? Can you hear? Oh god, we're having so many difficulties. We're transcending. Can you hear this? Can you hear that? Can you hear that? Press 1 if you can hear that. Press 2 if you're currently transcending. Press 1 for penis. I am the law. That's right, amen. Can we get an amen? I am the law. Oh, time to light a cigarette and transcend. Let's go. You ever give yourself a stranger? I know Pakaranga has. Hello, Pakaranga. Welcome back. Press 1 if you're currently descending. Press 2 if you know what color this is. What color is this? What color is this? Oh, yep, you're right, you got it. Anyway, welcome back. This is Phenomenology Club, and I am Buttress. We're here to talk about it. Pakaranga says color only exists in your mind. Wow. Oh, God, it's so true. It's so true. What do we think about that? Is that true? Does color only exist in your mind? Press 1 if color only exists in your mind. Press 2 if color is everywhere. Color is everything, and color is real, and color is true. Color is true. So true, so valid, says Pakaranga. Everyone here is so true and valid. I can't get enough. It's so true and valid. Oh man, I forgot to record. It's okay, we're recording now. Now you've done it, Pakaranga. Oh, nope. Oh, god damn it. I'm having technical difficulties. Uh-oh. Hold on. Ableton just froze. If I disappear, I love you. Psych. Pakaranga did this. Anyway. What if you're colorblind? Oh, shit. Then color really doesn't exist for you, I suppose. You know, I'm not a neuroscientist. So I have a hard time having a hard line opinion about whether or not color exists. As time goes on, I just feel underqualified to really like speak definitively about any of these things, but it feels good. A lot of people would say I'm descending, regressing, descending into nihilism, but I think that, gaining some sort of humility is actually a transcendent experience. Really, we can't have a pure and perfect philosophy at this point, I think, unless we marry we need to marry neuroscience with philosophy. It's the only way. Press 1 if you think it's the only way. And unless you're a neuroscientist and a philosopher, I don't think that you're gonna be shit. You're not gonna be shit. There's nothing we can do for you. Period. Press 1 if you agree. Anyway, before we get into our topic, I'm smoking a cigarette inside, which I shouldn't be doing, but I'm in my party area. Yeah, you heard that right. My party area. I've exited party era. I've transcended. Now I'm in the party area. Press 1 if you know where the party area is. And if you're also there. Well, actually, no. Press 1 if you know where party area is. Press 2 if you're also here with me in the party area. Mama Maretius, also known as Verminizer, is here with us. Welcome, Verminizer. We're having a cool casual stream because we're transcending. And, the other week I did don't talk about it, then I did talk about it, then I did nothing. I'm just kind of feeling out the vibes, and you know what? I'm having a good old time. Press 1 if you're having a good old time. This is Pookie Pete, by the way. Hey, Pookie Pete. Love you, Pookie Pete. We're just here to fuck around, have a good time in the party area, if you know where it is. If you don't know where it is, maybe I'll invite you, if you could follow the directions. But I would say only about 50% of people are equipped to follow the directions to the party area. Have you ever followed the directions to the party area? Press 3 if you have. It's quite difficult. Anyway, let's talk about it. What's going on in the world? Let's start by just bullshitting about whatever. What's even happening in current events? Is anything happening? The era of discourse continues to be over. Do you agree? I feel as if discourse is over. Though, I have opened my mind to the possibility that perhaps this is a sort of a personal experience that discourse feels over. I'm trying to get a feel because I'm a phenomenologist. I'm phenomenologically minded. Let me ask the audience. I've asked you guys before for feedback and gotten different results. Do you guys feel like discourse is over? Or are you just kind of flattering me when you agree with me when I say that discourse is over? I genuinely feel like people are just tired of it. Actually, I went to a party the other day. And I was talking to some friends that I haven't seen in a while, and I shared this idea with them that I feel as if discourse is over. The era of discourse is over. Everyone's tired of fucking talking about it. And I got a lot of agreement. Then again, I don't know if people are just flattering me. Perhaps they are. Do you guys ever agree with someone just to get them to shut the fuck up? Maybe that's what was happening to me. How can I know? How can I know anything? How can I know if color is real? How can I know if I'm just experiencing it in my mind? How do I know if discourse is really over or if I'm just experiencing the end of discourse in my mind? God. Verminizer wins. He said, you don't find the party area by following the directions. That's fucking right. Let's go. Jersey. Verminizer wins. Pack. Oh, for sure. Discourse is over, but I'm also flattering everyone all the time innately. Wow, you're such a kind and benevolent buddy, Pakaranga. That's why we love you. Verm says, I think it's mostly over, but maybe that's because I'm actively distancing myself from it. Yeah, oh God. It actually kind of ties into the topic and what I was just thinking about. Transcendence. Let's talk about it. Transcendence. I'm not monitoring the audio, so I can't tell if I'm even adding delay at the time that I think I am, or if delay is all in my mind. I don't know. Did you hear that? Do you hear this? Or is it all in my mind? What was I just gonna say? Oh yeah, I feel like this kind of ties into the topic actually. Transcendence. First of all, what is it? Let's get into this for a second. Transcendence, I mean, nobody should really be unfamiliar with this idea of transcending. This idea that you are breaking some sort of boundary, you are going beyond the limits of something. And in many cases, that something is often talked about as being the self. This idea that you can transcend limitations of your own self and personhood to achieve some sort of goal that exists beyond the scope of what you feel is currently available or achievable by you. Available to or achievable by you. I was thinking about this concept, transcendence, and we could talk about it in a few different ways, but I'm just thinking about what Verminizer just said, this idea that he's actively distancing himself from discourse, and whether or not discourse is truly over. I've been thinking about, how I personally feel as if discourse is over, and I've been feeling a sense of guilt and shame in some ways, because, in previous years, I've been so incredibly enthused by the activity of philosophizing, the activity of sitting around and discoursing endlessly about things like whether or not color is real, whether or not color is all in your mind, talking about various philosophers, talking about various ideas, philosophy of ethics, all this fun, very fun, still fun shit. But, it was just kind of this obsession where I actually felt like maybe this is a meaningful activity and this can contribute to humanity in some sort of positive way, even if I don't make some sort of individual contribution, which, I don't necessarily think is in the cards for me. But, oops, someone texted me. Or most of us, but still, just participating in this act of discourse is some sort of thing that benefits humanity. And I was thinking about this idea of transcendence as it relates to this topic. It's like I've been feeling kind of down on myself because I just kind of lack this motivation to sit around and talk endlessly about the world around me and all these various terminologies and trying to create or participate in some sort of useful philosophy. But I was thinking about it, and it's like when we think about the concept of transcendence itself and what exactly is often being talked about, people talk about transcending the self to achieve some sort of goal beyond their scope, right? But isn't this only a concept that exists because there are always some sort of arbitrary goals, or perhaps as Ted Kaczynski would call them, surrogate activities that we've created around ourselves and made some sort of ideal for no real fucking reason? Often when we talk about concepts of transcendence as they relate to various religions, whether it's Buddhism, Christianity, or even philosophies of self-help or mind over matter as it relates to health goals or physical fitness goals, and the self as being this limiting variable and trying to achieve all our goals. What are all these goals that we're always trying to achieve outside of ourselves? They're always just kind of these arbitrary goals. To use the self-help philosophy, for example, or the idea of physical fitness goals. It's this idea that if I can only transcend this limitation, I can squat 400 fucking pounds. Which is a totally fine and beautiful goal, especially if you're trying to become some sort of earthly Chad. But when you really think about it, it's well, what does it fucking matter? Or even, trying to reach transcendence as it relates to your daily life. I was just looking at something called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Maslow is some sort of fucking guy. Let's give it up for guys. Just some sort of fucking guy, some psychologist, I don't know. I was looking at this chart, his chart for self-actualization or something. And it's all of these tiers of relating to the hierarchy of needs have to do with goals just relating to society and civilization and personal goals and how you can achieve them. It's to the pyramid speaking to that. And it's man, this is all nice, but what if we didn't exist in a society? Would there even be a concept like transcendence, I'm thinking about this as it relates to the idea that discourse is over, because it's I almost feel like this weird sense of nihilism. I saw Pacarango's talking about nihilism, as he should be. And it's like, I feel sometimes like, man, what have I lost? Why have I lost this lust, this motivation for like trying to categorize the world around me in meaningful, useful terms that could benefit human society and civilization? But then I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'm transcending because I'm realizing that it's all a bunch of surrogate fucking activities. I don't want to say nothing matters. I think everything matters. And I think life is very amazing and beautiful, and I love living it. But, increasingly, too, living in a society where we're just so laden with all of these surrogate activities and bullshit activities, it's like you begin to see, even things that I feel like could be rewarding, like sitting around talking about whether or not color is in your mind all day. You see even these things as like ultimately kind of arbitrary because they are. They might be fun, they might be rewarding, they might even serve some sort of practical purpose, but at the end of the day, it is a surrogate activity in the sense that it's not necessary. Everything that we do is just kind of this invented activity. Everything we do, at least, that isn't eating, shitting, fucking, screaming, dreaming. What else? Smoking cigarettes. That's an essential activity. Let me light another one. I can't look at the chat because Pacaranga's too funny. Like, I feel like I'm letting go of this guilt I have about not really giving a fuck about discourse anymore. Even discourse. I'm not talking about just like Twitter talking points. I'm talking about things also as like sitting around talking about whether or not apples are green or red. I think this is a useful activity, and if you have enthusiasm and motivation for doing it, you absolutely should, because you should do whatever the fuck you want, period, party area. But it's like, it is ultimately a surrogate activity. And there would be no need to transcend anything without surrogate activities. I mean, can we think of like some sort of transcendent need, some sort of boundary that needs to be broken just to like exist as a physical human animal in the world around us? It's kind of amazing. It's kind of amazing how we have almost like spiritualized the concept of failure and turned it into this like, well, arbitrary failure to reach arbitrary societal goals like squatting 400 pounds or making $1 million next year. We've kind of like spiritualized this failure, the failure to meet societal goals that are all surrogate activities, and turn it into this concept of like overcoming the self and transcending. And I'm talking about it, of course, only from like some sort of specific perspective. I know that in like Buddhism, for example, transcending is when you like become a fucking void brain or something and like lose all fucking thoughts and just become this pure perfect vessel for nothing. I'm totally making shit up, but that's the vibe. That's the vibe I get. We got any Buddhists in the chat? Oh. Hirba says, modern society seems like it awards watching life as opposed to living in a tribe where you're too busy surviving instead of ideas. Well, I mean, I've heard people say things like that before, Pete. Like this idea that, like, if we were all just like fulfilling our basic animal needs, like running around hunting, gathering berries, doing this, doing that, we'd be all too busy to sit around thinking about what the fuck is this and what the fuck is that. And I don't think that's necessarily true. I mean, I think pontificating about life and existence is just a natural, quote unquote, byproduct of human language. As soon as you invent something like language, at least a language like ours, all existent languages, which have the ability to like abstract complex concepts relating to like the experience of existing in the world, you're always going to have people sitting around pontificating about life and existence. It's just a byproduct of language, not of the human mind, though language is arguably a byproduct of the human mind. But I've said this many times before, it pisses me off when people are like, humans are the only animal that have the ability to sit around and think about our own existence. Yeah, bitch, because we're the only animal with such a complex symbolic language. That's it. If dogs had this, complex symbolic language, they'd be sitting around pontificating too. They just don't. It's not the human mind necessarily, it's the fact that the human mind possesses a complex symbolic language, similar to a software, that we use to create all of these various random combinations to sit around and pontificate about life. I would argue that the other animals already do sit around and pontificate about life, just in ways that are less clearly defined and understood by us, because we have no sort of translation, as they have no complex symbolic language. You know, something that really freaked me out once, I went to the zoo, and the zoo, first of all, is one of the most depressing places in the world. I mean, fuck zoos. Including zoos that like only have endangered animals, because that makes it more depressing. I'm not saying they shouldn't exist, but it's like, you know, people are always like, oh yeah, the zoos, as long as it's like endangered animals and they're all saved. It's like, yeah, I mean, that's good, but it's still so sad. It's like, man, there's still a byproduct of our bullshit. Like the fact that we've went and like, you know, totally destroyed all these ecosystems, and now we like we take the refugees into our zoos and make a profit off them. It's still completely depressing bullshit. But anyway, zoos are awful, depressing places. And I was at the zoo once, and I think it was in Chicago, and I was at the the part with the gorillas, and I was looking at this one gorilla, and it freaked me the fuck out. Because first of all, I mean, gorillas are so human-like. They literally like look like us with a lot of fur, which is incredibly depressing, first of all. And I saw this one gorilla, and it was chewing on its fingernails, you know, kind of like we do. It had its fingers in its mouth, and it took its hand out of its mouth, and it started like bending its fingers, like, you know, like how humans do, like when you're just holding your hand and bending your fingers into or out of a fist. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm talking about, right? Press 1 if you know what I'm talking about. It was doing that, but it was staring straight ahead, like it was deep in thought. Like playing with its fingers, but just staring at nothing, like it was zoned out. And it was totally fucking thinking. I mean, of course I'm projecting onto the gorilla, just as I'm projecting onto all of you. I don't know if all of you are real or if you're all in my mind like color. But, you know, it felt like a pretty safe assumption to make. This animal is just totally like playing with its fingers, but not thinking about it, just zoning out, thinking about something. I'm like, man, this gorilla is fucking thinking. It's just sitting here thinking. And I'm here looking at it in a cage. God, this is depressing. I don't even know how I got in this fucking rant. Verminizer is in my head. I knew it. Kirba says, I feel like it's a natural inclination to philosophize. Well, I think what's natural, Pookie Pete, if I may, what's natural is thinking. I think all animals think. Of course, I can't prove this, but I can't prove your thinking either. I think all animals clearly think, and an animal like us that's created a complex symbolic language clearly is going to use that to continue thinking. And language has totally shaped the way that we think. And every time we add a layer of language, in the sense that every time we expand this software we've installed into our hardware, that hardware being the human mind, naturally the functions become more complex and arguably more arbitrary. We've just created this completely, I don't want to say it's completely arbitrary in the sense that it has no real world significance, because clearly language starts with real world significance. We use it to describe our experience of the world around us. But ultimately the categories we've created are sort of arbitrary and ill-defined, and we just kind of go with them because it's all we have before we then go on to build another platform on top of the platform we've already built with language. We're always expanding and complicating language and making it more and more complex. And at baseline, yes, you know, all of it stems from this significance where we are describing real world relationships, our experience, our real world relationship to our experience being in the real world around us. But, you know, at this point, it's like too late, and we've talked about this a lot before. It's too late to go back and make like some seriously needed revisions. We're just kind of working with this software that started being built thousands of years ago. We might notice like, oh man, that was a mistake, but here we are. We've talked about gendered pronouns a lot, for example, you know, how arbitrary they seem when we think about the fact that like, we could have decided to make pronouns for different hair colors instead, you know. The brunette is crossing the street or the blonde is crossing the street. We could be like, you know, Brue's crossing the street and Blue is washing the window. Brew is eating a cheeseburger and Blue is fucking herself. You know, Blue is fucking Blue self. Like, it's so arbitrary how we've just decided that, like, the most important thing about any one individual is whether they are male or female. We could have easily decided that the most important physical trait of any person is actually their eye color or their hair color and chose to create pronouns around that instead. And if we did, the way we saw the world, because of the way we created language, would absolutely be altered. I would begin to see brunette and blonde people as being of some sort of fundamentally different, distinct quality, just as I do see men and women as being of some sort of fundamentally, distinctly different quality, you know, which some people could say is called for, and others could say, well, I think that we've made the division a little too, we've emphasized the division a little bit too much in our heads, and this has all sort of terrible implications. I'm more in that party. But, what am I saying? Nothing. It doesn't matter. I'm in a cage right now thinking, damn. Anyway, transcendence. Let's talk about it. Are we already talking about it? Press 1 if we're already always talking about it. Press 2 if you're not talking about it yet. I've always felt like, and maybe I've hinted at this already a little bit, that the very concept of transcendence is just sort of aesthetic. Ascetic meaning self-hating, you know. Coming from a Christian background in particular, there's all of this talk that you're inundated with from a very early age in Christianity about how you are a sinful, evil being. We are born with original sin. The original sin, of course, being Eve, a woman, giving into temptation from Satan himself, big man on campus, Satan himself, and partaking of the apple from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, giving it to a man, Adam. And now we all have this original sin, kind of like a software in and of itself. Now we're all born with it, like a virus, man. Enter the matrix. And in Christianity, you're taught that ultimately, you can't transcend this original sin. It is with you forever. What you can do is try to earn salvation through essentially what I would call a painful process of living a life on this wretched, scorched earth, trying to gain redemption for this original sin by being the best person you can possibly try being, obeying all the Lord's laws and commands, and trying to do good by your fellow man. I feel like similarly, even in more secularist, quote-unquote, religions like Buddhism, there's a similar kind of vibe, if you will, a similar kind of affect, even though the idea is much different. This idea that your mortal shell, your body, is a thing that ultimately becomes a limiting variable in your experience of the world, that leads you into all sorts of treacheries, all of your desires, earthly desires, lust, the desire to be hedonistic, the desire, period, the state of desire itself. The state of yearning is something to be transcended. If I'm not mistaken, the ultimate transcendent existence in Buddhism is to achieve desiring nothing. Entering the fucking void, you know. And the concept of transcendence itself, the concept of ultimately transcending yourself, I do find to be in some ways ascetic. This idea that you are an obstacle to be overcome. But not only is it ascetic in the sense that this is sort of self-hating, I'd also argue it's ultimately like kind of irrational when you really try to think about it. Like, how can one truly transcend yourself if all you are is yourself? Can I get an amen? How can I transcend myself if I am myself? What's there to be transcended? At the same time, like we were just saying, language is a very primitive tool, in my opinion. And a lot of the ways that we've decided to format language and structure it rationally honestly don't make a whole lot of fucking sense. I can sit here all fucking day long and say that the very concept of transcendence is irrational, because how can I transcend myself if I am myself? At the same time, I use language all damn day, every damn day. I know that language is an imperfect machine, and I understand the spirit, if you will, of what's being communicated when we talk about trying to transcend limitations of our own mind and experience to achieve certain goals. Can I get an amen? So, what do we do here, especially since the era of discourse is over? Do you think that committing ourselves to a task like perfecting and improving language is even a worthy thing anymore? Am I only so disillusioned with a project that I previously thought was so meaningful, this project of creating a pure and perfect human philosophy with which we can better human experience and human civilization? Do I think that this project is not worthwhile only because of the context of the world I live in at the moment? Because that certainly has a lot to do with it as well. Am I not transcending something by regressing into nihilism? Because if the world wasn't like on fire, metaphorically speaking, but also maybe soon, literally speaking, would I be so disillusioned with the project of discourse and the project of philosophy? Does the context of the world as we exist in it right now, is this actually the limiting variable that we need to transcend in order to maintain some sort of sense of positivity about the future? And should we commit blindly to some sort of feeling of optimism, even if there's no real reason to do it? Oh my God, I don't know. Palcaranga says, was that a Red Bull? I heard a can. No, it was probably a Gatorade. I already had a Red Bull. Called out. Pakaranga, interesting. Earlier you said we do the same for baby/child/adult/old. True. Categorizing humans into these like age categories. That's true. Though I do feel like we use these words less often, you know. But it is true, you know, we often call out whether someone's old or a baby. We don't typically call a baby a person. We call a baby a baby. And when we see somebody who's very old, I feel like it's very easy and common to remark on them being some sort of senior citizen or old person. Should I have one more cigarette? Press 1. If I should. God, smoking inside, especially when you live in such a small place, is just not a good thing. I think we need to do this for a second. I can't figure it out. What's important? Are things important? Do they only seem unimportant because I'm depressed? Do I need to transcend this depressing context? Pakaranga says, maybe we only have toddlers on the farm. Smoking inside is decadent. All over again. Let's go. Wow, all these universal truths sound amazing over the Macarena, says Pakaranga. You know, Pakaranga and Macarena really kind of rhyme when you think about it. Isn't that amazing? Mishka says, male and female is probably the one that made it because reproduction was so important. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think that the differences between male and female are so significant that sometimes I wonder if we should be classified almost as entirely separate animals, quote unquote, in some regards. Sometimes I think that the difference between us is not emphasized enough, but I don't think that that difference needs to be articulated like in this weird subversive way through speech, because I feel like the pronoun thing, not to get off topic, but we're doing what we want. We're in our party area. Not to get off topic, but it's like, I feel like, you know, what should be different is we should talk more about how female people and male people experience the world in starkly different physical ways, which is reality. I mean, reality is something born from physical experience. However, like, the way that we just enforce this difference through this, like, arbitrary assignation of gendered pronouns just feels, like, subversive and passive-aggressive, for lack of a better term. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like we're always calling out the difference so much that we just, like, reinforce this sort of, like, aesthetic difference between the sexes, but we never even talk about the actual difference. It doesn't seem to have too many benefits, in my opinion. I don't think talking about people in terms of men and women is, you know, some sort of problem and we should, like, act like it's not real. Of course not. It's just that I feel like, you know, separating all people in the English language, and many languages do this too, you know, with their gender terminology, I don't feel like it's really too much of a useful activity. Uh-oh. Verm fell into the demotion zone in Duolingo. I'm sorry to hear that, buddy. I'm really sorry to hear that. Pakaranga says, like how rooster and chicken or cow and bull are different animals, pretty much. Yeah, exactly. Kind of. Yeah, exactly. And, you know, that's what the terms woman and man are used to describe. But that's another thing, you know. It's like, you don't have to, like, people, I think the problem is we bring up the difference in context where the difference doesn't matter. To use the example before, you know, if we're talking about brunette people and blonde people, and we decided that pronouns were going to be used to distinguish these categories instead. We say blue crosses the street and brew is washing the car. It's like, what does it matter that the person washing the car has blonde hair and the person crossing the street has brown hair? So when I say the woman's crossing the street and the man is washing the window, there's almost this sort of like implication that the fact the person washing the window has a penis and the fact the person crossing the street has a vagina, it's like this implication that that's meaningful information. You know what I'm saying? And you sort of start to internalize differences as being meaningful even in contexts where they're not meaningful. Like, if we're just describing everyday human activities that men and women participate in to equal degrees, like crossing the street and washing the window, it feels irrational, in my opinion, to be reinforcing, like, this understanding and this aesthetic difference that, like, the person crossing the street has a vagina and the person standing over there has a penis. Like, it feels like I'm just kind of arbitrarily creating this aesthetic difference in my mind where it's not meaningful, and it becomes like, it feels like an irrational way of looking through the world. I'm not even going to argue about equality of the sexes at the moment because I've transcended from that. Now I'm just being deep and philosophizing. It just feels irrational. I think if I found myself in a world where a worldview where I'd created with language some sort of aesthetic difference that I was reinforcing daily with my use of language, this difference between blonde and brunette people, I would feel similarly. I would like, you know what? I feel like I'm being intellectually handicapped at this point because I'm always calling out the hair color of people, even in contexts where the hair color doesn't mean shit. It feels irrational, and it makes me feel cucked. It makes me feel like a beta. It makes me feel stupid and like a pussy. I want a pure, perfect worldview. I want the most objective, quote-unquote, worldview possible. I want the most rational, deep, amazing, beautiful worldview possible, and that's not going to be possible if I'm creating all of these bullshit categories and adhering to them and creating a lens that's so biased through which I view the world, where I'm seeing all these differences where the context doesn't call for them being reinforced. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Pakaraga says, to be honest, learning an entire different language, surrogate activity. Mishka says they have a huge age distinction in some languages, like how Japanese people say senpai. Interesting. So you're saying that in some languages, the difference between people's ages is even more called out and reinforced through language? That's interesting. Very interesting. Let's try to go back on topic. What do we think about this concept, transcendence? Is it harmful? I've been saying recently that I've been transcending because I feel like I am, honestly. I feel as if I've broken past a boundary. But I don't think I necessarily feel that the boundary I've broken past was some sort of like thing that I imposed upon myself. So basically I'm absolving myself of accountability and I'm allowing myself to use this word because I can do whatever the fuck I want. I'm in my party area. Like, maybe I just don't give a fuck. Maybe I don't give a fuck. Let's look at the dictionary definition. Transcendent.
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 Exceeding usual limits. Surpassing. See, that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. B. Extending or lying beyond the limits of ordinary experience. Well, that's interesting. What is ordinary experience? This makes me think of something else, too, that I've encountered a lot. And what I'm thinking about, too, as it relates to the earlier conversation on discourse, on general conversations about transcendence. I've seen a lot of people talk about the fact that, like, more and more so, people increasingly are engaging in activities that have high dopamine rewards with little effort. Things like scrolling through TikTok, the thing called TikTok. I don't have a TikTok, or maybe I have a login. I really don't know. I have the app on my phone for when, like, my sisters send me something and I'll look at it, but I do not go on TikTok. But, I go on other social media, and it's true. It does become addicting. You just kind of scroll through, and without having to expend any real effort, you can just kind of experience these dopamine rewards. It becomes kind of addicting. Or things like smoking cigarettes, which I'm doing right now. I smoke cigarettes. Every time I do, I have a little dopamine reward. I'm drinking a Gatorade. I'm having a dopamine reward. Like, we are just kind of living this super hedonistic lifestyle, which sounds weird to say because I feel like a lot of us are completely miserable. At least we vocalize that we are all the time. But really, like, when you think about it, we are just surrounded by earthly, sinful pleasures. Can I get an amen? I mean, it's like all day, every day. Even things like, the luxury, quote unquote, of the modern diet. I wouldn't necessarily say the modern diet is luxurious in the sense that, it's all full of microplastics and chemicals that are killing us and making our testicles shrink. But in some sense, to ignore the actual health content of what we eat, we do enjoy a luxurious diet. We have snacks in our houses. Isn't that crazy? I mean, can you imagine bringing like a Neanderthal into your modern abode and being like, oh yeah, you want a snack? I have this bag of pretzels. Like, oh, I have water on tap. I have hot water that runs in this like little fucking vesicle in the corner. You can get under it and enjoy a shower. You can masturbate under my covers. You can fucking, I don't know, you can like do so many things that feel good in my little fucking house. I have access to heat. I have access to air conditioning. Like, we're just like living this completely hedonistic lifestyle. It to like abstract it into like, you know, to think about life as if we were like scrolling TikTok, modern life as if we were scrolling TikTok. It's like we just like go through this sequence of activities that feel good all day, every day, and we're so used to them as like this ordinary baseline. Our ordinary experience, the baseline of our ordinary experience, like we use this as the baseline on which we build the platform of all our goals and desires, you know. And just as we're scrolling, endlessly scrolling social media and always like feeling unsatisfied, looking for more, it's like every dopamine hit like creates this yearning for more of it, you know. I feel like perhaps part of the problem is that we're just always like, our ordinary experience is just this series of pleasurable events, you know? Is this part of the problem? Is this why we feel this need to transcend? Oh, damn. Oh, he's back. Okay, you're out of the demotion zone? Thank God. We don't want to get demoted in Duolingo. That's awful. Pakaranga says, hot water not from a volcano. He also says, always being pleasured is probably a problem. I feel like perhaps it is. I mean, I don't know. You know, it's like when you're always kind of transcending the limits of ordinary experience, which one could argue the ordinary human experience is just existing as an animal on the earth, not necessarily with language inherently, not having access to things like the internet where we can sit around and pontificate together and enter the party area, or not having access to Gatorade, which I'm sipping, cigarettes, access to social media, like perhaps without being embroiled in this lifestyle where we are just going through this sequence of like attaining pleasure constantly, perhaps we wouldn't feel this intense desire to always be transcending it, you know. And perhaps, I mean, it seems true that a lot of what people talk about transcending is transcending this new ordinary experience where I'm just surrounded by addicting pleasures. And then saying that, oh, instead of doing this, I should be doing this other thing. But what are the other things we should be doing too? I mean, those are also arguably surrogate activities like Duolingo. Oh, God. Is it just the natural, ordinary, baseline human experience to constantly be in a state of desire or yearning? Sorry, Verm. Pakaranga says Duolingo is a surrogate activity. Even the Duolingo leagues is dopamine just for learning, says Pakaranga. He's right. God, what do we do about it? Is it possible to be motivated by anything other than the pursuit of pleasure? Really? I mean, this is another thing. Even here, we're talking about the pursuit of pleasure and the pursuit of like dopamine and addictive behaviors as being something potentially harmful. But, I mean, is it possible to transcend the pursuit of pleasure? Because even if we were still, you know, Neanderthals running around hunting, toddlers on a farm, still we're pursuing pleasure in some way. When I'm hungry, I pursue the pleasurable activity of eating. When I want to boink, I pursue the pleasurable activity of boinking or of masturbation. When I'm thirsty, I pursue the pleasurable activity of drinking water. I mean, this is what motivates us to eat and to drink, right? That eating and drinking are pleasurable activities. Maybe an exception would be like shitting. shitting feels pleasurable, I would argue, but I would also argue that like shitting is also just kind of this uncontrollable urge. Your body is just kind of gonna like start shitting whether or not you decide you're ready to shit. I mean, you can hold it, but that will become quickly displeasurable. You know what I'm saying? But you know, is this what the pleasure principle is? Is it? It is. In Freudian psychoanalysis, the pleasure principle is the instinctive seeking of pleasure and avoiding of pain to satisfy biological and psychological needs. Specifically, the pleasure principle is the driving force guiding the aid, says Wikipedia. Well, you know what? I think Freud was right about this one. I think he is right about this one. So if everything is done in the pursuit of pleasure, then how do we organize some sort of like hierarchy of understanding around like which pleasurable activities are best to pursue, which are simply surrogate activities, which are more productive? I mean, I think that we essentially already do this, right? And this is kind of the underlying drive behind creating concepts like transcendence, you know. I need to transcend the pleasurable activities or the desire or addiction to certain pleasurable activities that I know ultimately don't benefit me in pursuit of ones that arguably could benefit me more better, like learning another language. But can I prove that learning another language actually would benefit me better? I feel like this is part of the nihilism of existing in the now. We live at this weird crossroads right now where the future is so uncertain, nobody can seem to be able to decide whether or not any activity is worth pursuing at this point. It almost feels like our future is just like totally fucking up in the air. And also, I mean, it almost feels like we've seen what happens when we just allow uninhibited growth and surrogate activities. The Industrial Revolution and its consequences have been a disaster for the human race. Can I get an amen? Look at where we've ended up. And I think part of what's really depressing about the now and why perhaps we have lost motivation to even try and transcend the modern condition and try to do something better and more productive with our lives is probably because, for me, there's sort of this underlying belief that even if we transcend all of the modern conditions that I find so aesthetically distasteful and so unhealthy and so unproductive, there's like this innate fear I have that we're just going to rebuild the same conditions in a future world. It almost feels like we've reached like a peak of something, an iteration of something. To speak about like language again, you know, almost feels like we've reached the conclusion, or we're reaching the conclusion, or if we're not reaching the conclusion, we've like passed some sort of point of no return where we've seen what like our current iteration of civilization and the language that we use to build it, because we did use our language to build civilization. I don't mean English, but you know, I mean modern humans used language to build this civilization. It would not exist without it. It feels like if we were to destroy everything because of the way that we've structured human thought and language and our understanding of the world, if we were to rebuild a new world, it would probably just ultimately end up looking like the one that we're in. Are we just doomed to this cyclical pattern? It almost feels like, well, who cares if we rebuild? If we rebuild, we're just going to rebuild the same bullshit. How can we ever transcend some sort of reality where we're probably just going to recreate the same shit all over again? Why would we not? If our platform on which we stand and understand the world, the lens through which we understand the world is the same, language is the same, our baseline concepts, even things that seem arbitrary like colors, green, red, man, woman. If our way of looking at the world, if this lens does not become shattered, then I feel like we'll just recreate the world this way again. And that makes me sad. That makes me feel nihilistic. Do I need to consciously try to transcend this worldview? Or is it a rational worldview? Is this a productive activity in and of itself, discoursing about the end of discourse and how transcendence is an impossibility? I feel like such a doomsdayer. It feels kind of good, though. Kind of fits the aesthetic of everything else going on. Can I get an amen? I want to be like coast to coast for just like phenomenological doomsday content. What is it? Coast to coast AM, FM? That's me. That's me. Anyway, let's get in a little meditation so we can transcend our way out of here. Ready? Everybody sit back, close your eyes, and put your hands deep into your pants. We, the members of Phenomenology Club, manifest that we will maybe transcend, or maybe we will never transcend the limiting variable of the context of all that exists around us. Phenomenology Club manifests that we will think about it and talk about it in pursuit of the pleasure principle. We manifest a commitment to the understanding that we are ultimately animals, incapable of transcending our desire for endless hits of dopamine. We manifest that we will enjoy this because we don't have a choice in the matter. I'm having a great time. Press 1 if you're also having a great time. We manifest that we will have a great time forever and ever 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 until we expire from this earthly realm. Warning, transcendental third eye awakening, binaural beats and isochronic tones. Warning, transcendental third eye awakening. Warning, transcendental third eye awakening. Warning, transcendental third eye awakening. We, the members of Phenomenology Club, manifest that our transcendental third eye is awakening. We manifest that we will find and commit ourselves to an answer in the face of the question, do we carry on? Do we commit to a goal? With the understanding that if we, the members of Phenomenology Club, decide that we do wish to commit to a goal, it will be undoubtedly necessary to transcend some limiting variables that exist currently as obstacles to that goal. We manifest that we will find an answer, whether or not it would be productive to try to transcend the depressing, all-encompassing nihilism of the current moment. The world around us is on fire. We manifest that we will make a decision, no matter how long it takes, no matter how much we must talk about it or not talk about it. We will find and commit ourselves to a decision of what is most productive and what is best to do, even if we must commit to the irrationalities and pitfalls of our human English language, committing to irrational concepts like transcendence of self. We will do the right thing. Amen. We can do it. Can I get an amen? I think we could do it. I think so. It might take a few years. I'm definitely at a crossroads. I don't know how many times I can fucking say it. Definitely at a crossroads right now. Like, I don't know what to do. But I want to do what is most rational. And I know that once I've identified what is most rational, I will commit to the project. That's the problem. It doesn't feel rational at this point in time to commit to any pursuit. But I don't know if that's because the aesthetic context that I exist in has made it seem that everything is so futile at this current moment because the future is so fucking uncertain and unpredictable. When things are unpredictable, how can I commit to a goal? You know what I'm saying? It's almost like when you're so hungry and there's so many options. Let's say you're in New York City, which I often am because I'm in the party area. Like, it's like the more options there are, the harder a decision becomes. That's how I feel at this current moment in time about the future of the world. There's just so many possibilities, and all of them seem equally as likely and unlikely. I can't commit to what I think is most productive because I don't fucking know what's going on. I'm not going to hold that against myself. And I don't know about you. You're free to do that. But, I think if we can parse through this and try to find the most rational perspective, then it will be easier to commit ourselves to some sort of goal relating to what we think is most productive in the world. Can I get an amen? Period. See you at the crossroads, says Verminizer. That's right. I'll see you at the fucking crossroads. Oh, excuse me. So next Sunday is Christmas. I don't know if I'll be around. I think I will be because I think my Christmas celebration is at noon, so I should be back in the evening, in which case we'll do a Christmas live stream because why the fuck not? If for some reason I won't be back in time, then we won't do a Christmas live stream, and perhaps what we'll do instead is stream the day after or something. Maybe do a belated Christmas stream. I don't know. Sounds good, right? Are you guys going to be around? Does it matter? No. Nothing matters, right? Just kidding. We're only temporary nihilists. This is a period of temporary stasis. But it's not even stasis because we are moving. Even if we just get here every week and begrudgingly talk about stuff even though we don't want to because discourse is over. Eventually something has to happen. Can I get an amen? Shit. All right. I love you guys. Thank you for coming to the stream as always. Hop on into the Discord if you want to talk about it. It being anything. And Merry fucking Christmas. If I don't see you next Sunday, then I'll do it like Monday or Wednesday or something after, okay? Be safe. Enjoy your holidays. Don't get fucking COVID. It's out here. Everybody's getting sick. Not just from COVID, but other things. So wash your hands, you filthy animals, okay? I love you, and I'll see you sometime next week. Same time. Until next time. Stay trippy. Phenomenology Club signing off. Good night.